This episode provided two potential links to Hannibal Lecter being the Chesapeake Ripper. However, things went terribly wrong. One was misdirected, and the other one is now dead. So, once again, it seems things are back to status quo, or so it seems. This was a very interesting episode that actually had me guessing right up until the very end. Because it starts off with basically right where the last episode left off, with Jack Crawford and the FBI finding the supposed hideout of the Chesapeake Ripper, who until this point everyone thought was Will Graham, but they have found evidence of past Ripper killings. They have found. And since they're all in the same location, they are linked, and they have found evidence that basically renders Will Graham free to go. So he returns home, and also in addition to the blood of Beverly Cats and several body parts and trophies, Jack finds Miriam Lass, I believe her name was, who was actually the subject of a standalone episode, or a seemingly standalone story arc in season 1. She was basically an FBI trainee who Jack basically sent after the Chesapeake Ripper, and she disappeared. It's been 2 years, and Jack had basically given up on her, because he had been sent her arm as kind of a screw you, or at least that's what he assumed. So right away I was wondering, because we all know the Chesapeake Ripper is Hannibal Lecter. If not for the other movies, if not for the books, then if only for the way this show does not mince words, reminding you that, yes, Hannibal Lecter is the Chesapeake Ripper. They show you what he does, and the tension comes from finding out whether or not the other characters will catch him in the act, or whether or not they'll even survive to see him imprisoned. And the ending of this episode surprised me in that regard. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Like I said, with the release of Will Graham and Miriam Lass, I was completely at a loss as to what Hannibal Lecter could possibly hope to achieve, because Miriam Lass, they waste no time getting to this. She was a prisoner of Hannibal Lecter for 2 years, so in theory she could recognize him by his voice, because she never saw his face. She only heard a voice, but it turns out that she had been hypnotized, and Hannibal Lecter had basically been at work on her mind for the past 2 years, basically rendering her memories unreliable. So she claims that Hannibal Lecter's voice is not the same voice that she heard when she was a prisoner. So she at first seems like a dead end, and once again Hannibal Lecter gets off scot-free, seemingly, and further adding to my initial confusion was the fact that Lecter was perfectly willing to help out by kind of inducing hypnosis and trying to get her to recall some of the memories of who this guy was, of who her captor was, try and recover some of the vivid details. And I was very confused because we've established up to this point that Hannibal Lecter doesn't really have a self-destructive personality. He's insane, and he has basically no semblance of ethical limits, but we've never known him to be one of those serial killers who wants to be caught. So the release of these two prisoners, Will Graham and Miriam Lass, seemed like a very odd move. It seemed pretty out of character until the very end, where they actually do kill off a main character or a recurring character who, if I'm not mistaken, was also in the movies. This completely puts to rest any doubts I had about this show not following the movies. Because what else are they going to do? That's what I'm asking, because spoiler here. Spoiler. If you want my non-spoiler review, it was a very well written episode. It had plenty of really good twists. It was fantastically acted. The imagery is still as strong as ever, although it's somewhat less poetic and symbolic this time around. This time around, it does rely on the shock value of the murders more so than other episodes. But other than that, this episode was just fantastic. It completely keeps up with the astronomically high standards that this show has set. If you ask me, this show is one of the best, if not the best, television series currently running. I hate saying this, but I think I might actually like this more than Game of Thrones. Because we really get to delve into these characters' minds more than Game of Thrones, where a lot of the characters, it seems like a balancing act a lot of the time, trying to tell this massive several book long story, which involves all these characters. We don't really go as deep into the characters and their motivations and their personalities. We don't really go as deep with the characters on Game of Thrones as we do here. And considering how disturbed these characters are and how shocking these scenarios are, it's a good thing we go deep into their personalities. But that's real quick my spoiler-free opinion of it. But killing this, from here on there will be spoilers. Killing off Dr. Chilton, and this goes back to putting my initial confusion at rest, because like I said, Hannibal Lecter, the Chesapeake Ripper, hasn't exactly displayed a self-destructive personality up to this point. It turns out that releasing Will is just kind of the same old story at this point, and I say that not because it's getting stale, but because it doesn't really contribute much in his plan for this particular episode, which is to implicate Dr. Chilton. And it turns out that in those 2 years, Hannibal Lecter, by basically picking at her brain, not literally, but basically by hypnotizing her and having these let's call them private sessions with Miriam Lass, he was basically manipulating her into interpreting her captor as Chilton. 2 years with Hannibal Lecter at your brain has to do some weird stuff. So that enabled this to be more credible. That enabled this twist to be like, oh, okay, that's what he was doing for the past 2 years. Now I have to wonder, was he always planning this? Did he always know that Chilton would did he, actually no. No, here's what it is. This is just now dawning on me because I just got done watching the episode. Hannibal Lecter, I don't think intended to release Miriam Lass at this point in time until Dr. Chilton displayed potential of ratting him out, of going to the FBI and implicating him. So I think a large part of this was because he wanted to see what would happen, which kind of goes back to his fundamental motivation. The fundamental motivation for Hannibal Lecter and his killings, at least in this interpretation, is he wants to see what will happen. I mean, he's an educated man, and he is conducting. He basically throughout the entire show has been conducting a series of experiments with different people. The problem is that, like I said before, he doesn't really possess that ethical filter. He doesn't possess. I think he is aware what he is doing is considered wrong by several people, but I don't really think. Actually, no, I know he doesn't care. He sees his experiments as infinitely more important than any laws that people could possibly think up. So I think, and also he obviously sees a certain beauty in what he does. Um, I'm going pretty comparatively deep um, here, but that's the first reason that he did this. The second reason why he might have imprisoned Miriam Lass is to have some sort of contingency plan in case Dr. Chilton ever became a problem. Maybe he was trying to mix it up because up until this point he has basically killed anyone who has learned his secrets because he killed Abigail Hobbs. He killed Beverly Katz. He killed Abel Gideon. So I don't know. Maybe he's like I said. Maybe he's trying to mix it up. Maybe he's not trying to draw too much of a pattern. But this does seemingly throw a lot of people off his scent, all except for Will Graham, which that was an interesting move because Will, I get the sense is you really do get the sense that Will has come away from this whole experience a very changed man. He's significantly more burdened, but at the same time he's a lot more stoic than he was at the beginning of the show. He's a lot more. He almost. What's the word I'm looking for? He almost seems disconnected at several points. He seems emotionally disconnected from the events befalling him. Hence why there wasn't really any kind of reaction on his face when Chilton came to him for help. But the fact that Will has turned into this emotionally disconnected person, and the fact that he is seemingly playing Hannibal Lecter's game now is pretty intriguing. It's a pretty intriguing advancement in character, and for Will Graham as well. I mean, basically this whole season he has been kind of. I don't want to say one note because that carries a negative connotation. One note basically carries the meaning that I'm getting bored with him. I have never been bored with the character of Will Graham on this show. On the contrary, I was kind of bored with Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lambs. Will Graham, any interpretation of Will Graham so far, I think has been infinitely more interesting than Clarice Starling. But that's just me. But the fact that Will Graham is going to try and deceive Hannibal Lecter is pretty intriguing because we haven't really seen him try to do that before. He's always tried to go for the very direct route. But in finally accepting Hannibal Lecter seemingly back as his friend is going to we're going to have some fun conversations between these two. We're going to have if this trend continues, we're going to have some very fun moments with Will Graham and a lot of juicy material for Hugh Dancy to play with, even more so than has already been revealed. Another really good moment was the scene between Will Graham and Miriam Lass. I think it's Lass. If not, then I've been saying her name wrong this whole time, and I've sounded like an idiot, but tell me something I don't know. But the conversation between Will and Miriam was interesting because on one hand they see each other as these kind of kindred spirits because they've both been manipulated by the Chesapeake Ripper. but at the same time, you can tell that each of them has had very different experience. You can tell that Miriam Lass is a lot more emotionally and mentally traumatized to the point where she is not even remotely the same person. Will Graham is darker. I mean, he's obviously a changed person, but he is not nearly traumatized to the point that Miriam Lass is, to the point where he is unable to continue his exploits, to continue his efforts to implicate Hannibal Lecter. So overall, this is a very intriguing episode. Like I said, it kept me guessing till the very end, and even though it seemingly puts things back to square one, it does throw an interesting twist in there with Will Graham, potentially trying to manipulate and play the game, as it were. So this sets things up very nicely for the next few episodes. It's great to see Will out of the mental institution. I have, with this episode has gotten me to stop doubting what characters will get killed off in this show, because clearly no one is safe. Chilton, he may have been a minor character, but he was still in the other stories, in the other Thomas Harris stories, which take place after this. So in doing that, A, was a really bold move, and B, shows that, like I said, no one is safe. Jack Crawford might even get killed off, but again, I'm just speculating. So yeah, really looking forward to the next episode, and as always, this one was just amazing. And I do not exaggerate when I say that this show, honestly, is one of the best on television. So take my word for what relatively little it's worth on the internet. So bye.